So a week ago, we were talking about Proxy Horse, and we had a good laugh about how Firewall Dragon is banned, but it got turned into a horse to be brought back into the game. Firewall Dragon has a lot of retrains, but this one is by far one of the weirdest retrains, just because, yeah, it's a horse. But today we got the new OCG ban list reveal, and there's a pretty curious card on that update. Now, I don't know a lot about the OCG format, so I'm not really going to spend any time talking about these changes and how they might affect their tournaments. But yeah, we have some unlimits here, we have some semi-limits here, but then when people saw the limits, you can see here limited Red Reboot, Nadir Servant, Dino Wrestler, Pankratops, and Firewall Dragon. Yeah, so Firewall Dragon is unbanned, but of course they changed the effect. In today's video, I want to go over this new Firewall Dragon because it does have a pretty significant nerf on its abilities, and also I want to talk about just erratas in general because they can happen for a lot of reasons, but in today's video I really want to talk about why erratas happen, why Konami keeps doing them, and especially why they would do it for a card like Firewall Dragon. So this is the new Firewall Dragon, and by the way, this artwork was already available in the OCG. It's just an alternate artwork. This is Firewall Dragon. It's not going to have a new name. It is the same old card, just with a new effect. So it's still a Link 4, it is still Light and Cyberus, and it still takes 2+ monsters. You can only use this card's name's 1 and 2 effects once per turn each. So already that is a pretty big nerf because, as you probably remember, the original version of Firewall Dragon, the second effect where you can special summon the monster, that was not a hard once per turn, but now it is. Also, that effect has been changed, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the first effect says once while face up on the field. Quick effect, you can target monsters on the field and or graveyard up to the number of monsters co-linked to this card, return them to the hand. So that has not changed at all as far as I know. The second effect though, which is now a hard once per turn, has changed pretty significantly. So if a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Cyberus monster from your hand. So not only is it a hard once per turn, but also you can only special summon a Cyberus monster from your hand, not anything like you could in the past. So that's a pretty big nerf to Firewall Dragon. I remember a while back people were talking about when Firewall Dragon was still legal, how could Konami change the effect to not be so broken if they really want to keep it in the game? And this is pretty close to a lot of those suggestions. I'm pretty sure people even specifically said this should be the change multiple times, which is pretty interesting. The whole problem with Firewall Dragon is that this is a card from the anime, and Konami always loves featuring cards from the anime in promotional material and in packs and all sorts of stuff like that. So by banning Firewall Dragon, a big card from that series, it does create a very awkward situation. So they are sort of encouraged to find a way for this card to exist in the format, and this is a way to do that. With this errata, the card is a lot worse. Not only is it a hard once per turn, but you can only special summon Cyberus monsters, which does make it a lot harder to use in a variety of decks. Actually, pretty much all of the decks that were abusing Firewall Dragon now don't really have any way to use it because pretty much all of them were not Cyberus strategies. That being said, the card is still a very powerful Link 4 monster. I'm not sure everyone's saying that, but yeah, the bouncing effect is exactly the same way, which is really good. That effect was always very useful. And while the second effect is not very good in comparison to what it used to be, because now you can't loop it anymore, it is still pretty good. I mean, if you were playing a Cyberus deck, this would almost certainly be a card that you would want in your extra deck. That being said, I don't think this Firewall Dragon will cause the same amount of chaos that it did when it was not errata, because yeah, it is nerfed and yeah, it can't be used in as many decks. But that begs the question, why do erratas happen at all? And I think it is important to talk about this because I know that that's a very controversial topic in the community. I myself even have a pretty big video where I talk badly about changing card effects of banned cards. So in the case of Firewall Dragon, what's one of the reasons that this is important? So besides the anime a connection. One of the big reasons that erratas like this can be really exciting compared to just making a new version of the card is that it's a big surprise. They unbanned Firewall Dragon and changed the effect. If the card already had like an announcement 3 months in advance because we knew it was being released, well, that wouldn't be as exciting. Now, obviously, if we eventually get this change in the TCG format, we won't be as surprised as the OCG players because we've already seen this, but that is one of the big reasons to errata a card as you unban it, rather than just making a new version in a future set. It also means you can use your old copies. You will need a translation, of course, but you won't necessarily have to go out and buy whatever the new version would have been because you can just use your old version. Although, honestly, I've seen so many people destroy their Firewall Dragons. I know one person even like attached it to a firework and blew it up, that maybe a lot of TCG players don't even own any copies of this card anymore. I think I still have one copy of Firewall Dragon that I was using for Winter Cherries in my Burning Abyss deck from back in 2018, but I'm not even sure about that. I might have just like gotten rid of it. Still, if you own a copy of Firewall Dragon, you won't necessarily have to go out and buy another copy, whereas if this card was retrained into a new release, Konami could just put it in a pack as a Chase Secret Rare, and now it's really expensive. This way though, it keeps it a little bit more budget friendly, which is good for most players. One of the other reasons that Konami has changed effects of cards in the past is when we have a card that was popular back in the day but would be broken if they brought it back into the game without changing its effect, but the card itself is so iconic and such a big deal that Konami would rather change the effect and unban it than make a new version. So, for example, Sangan was really good back in the day, but if you brought it back into modern Yu-Gi-Oh! With its old effect, it would be pretty broken because you could use the effect of the card that you added. So this way, by bringing Sangan back into the game with this nerfed version of its ability, you have Sangan, the actual card, in the game once again, but its effect is a little bit more reasonable and less abusable in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Rescue Cat is another great example. This card definitely could not have been brought back into Yu-Gi-Oh! With its original effect, but by making a couple smart changes, Konami can bring Rescue Cat back into the game so that we have all of the rescue cards unbanned, and people can still use their original versions if they want to, but it's not broken enough to ruin the format. This card with the nerfed effect did see tons of play in different decks. We saw it in Burning Abyss, for example, to summon 2 level 3 monsters, which is pretty cool. So by doing this, Konami was able to unban a card, take it off of the Forbidden and Limited list entirely, but now you have a less broken effect, so it's not completely abusable in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! One of the other things that can happen though is that Konami unbans an iconic card and completely changes the effect for the worse. So with Crush Card Virus, for example, this card is pretty much unplayably bad compared to the original version, and in this case this card got changed so much that I really feel like it should have just been a completely new release. Konami has released plenty of virus trap cards over the years, and I see no real reason why Crush Card Virus couldn't have just been banned forever, and then they make a new version of it that has this effect instead of editing the older version of the card. So this is an example where I don't really agree with the errata. Kind of like another example, Future Fusion, where this card didn't have as many individual changes as Crush Card Virus compared to the original version of Future Fusion, but it is so much worse than the original, and it's really not like the same type of card because the original Future Fusion was like a big foolish burial when you used it, and this one puts you on a 1-turn delay. This really should have just been a new card. There's no reason to unban Future Fusion if you're going to make it completely unplayable. Is it better to have a card that is banned forever or a card that's unbanned and so bad that no one plays it? This card has seen a tiny bit of experimentation in Infernoids, and also I suppose Crush Card Virus saw a tiny bit of experimentation in other decks, not Infernoids, but just decks in general. However, compared to their original versions, their original effects, these cards are a lot worse and have not been played nearly as much as those original copies. So going back to Firewall Dragon, in my opinion, the reason this card is unbanned is that Konami really likes Firewall Dragon. They like featuring it in promotional material. They know it's a fan favorite card in some way. I know it's for competitive players maybe not a fan favorite card, but it is a card that was featured in the anime, and Konami is encouraged to bring it back for that reason. That being said, this card probably will not see as much play as the original Firewall Dragon, and maybe that's for the best. I don't know when or if we will get this errata in the TCG. I would imagine it would happen sometime, but I wouldn't be holding my breath because it'll probably take a little while. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Goodbye.